Good evening, good morning, good night, good day, good afternoon, wherever you're watching this transmission. It is I, your humble servant, Mike Martins, bringing you another very special edition of Trends in the Housing Market. Yes, it is I, Mike Martins, and today is the 23rd day of November 2017, and man, do I have an action-packed, really good show for you guys. We're going to have some open lines if you guys want to call in. The phone number is 1-250-800-1489. I've been having a lot of people asking me if I could have my show start at 8 p.m. Pacific time, because there's a bunch of people out in the East Coast that want to watch this show live. And they have a really hard time staying up till midnight. You know, it was like back in the day when you used to watch those WrestleManias. WrestleMania 1 and 2 and 3 were on at midnight, 1 in the morning, right? So you had to kind of stay up really late to watch it. But anyways, I'm going to push for 8 o'clock Pacific time, Tijuana time, and see if I could get a good audience at that time. And yeah, the year is coming to an end. It is almost over. The year is unfortunately disappearing. We're heading to December in about a week and a half. Man, in a week. Wow. 23rd of November. We're heading to December in about a week, and time is just flying. So lots to cover on the housing market. The trend is looking very, how do you say, frail at the moment, because a lot of people are starting to wake up to kind of understand what's going on. And man, do I got a lot of stories, emails, handwritten letters sent to me, fan mail. I received fan mail, okay? People writing me letters, okay? Fan mail. And I'm really excited about that. So, let's get to some. I got lots of messages here from people. First message is, this is Dan from Michigan saying, I'm happy you're on earlier. Yeah, that's why I wanted to get people on the East Coast around the same time, you know what I'm saying? Then I got Margaret from West Virginia saying housing has skyrocketed in the last year. My daughter, a full-time nurse, is having a hard time finding anything affordable. So yeah, it's this housing market, this housing crisis, I think it's going to be a lot worse in the U.S. than it ever was in Canada. I'm not kidding. I know Canada is really bad. Toronto's really bad. Australia is horrible. But I think the U.S. is going to have a lot harder time with this housing crisis than any other country. But it's just starting there right now. It's just starting. And, yeah, people are checking in on the chats. I got the chat open on the right side. Walking Journeys there. Archie Bunker's here. So let everyone show up here on the chat. And messages are out of control. The amount of emails I'm getting is out of control. Fan mail written to me. I already got 3 letters this week from people that are scared to subscribe to my channel or comment on my channel because of what they feel their employer is going to think if they watch me on YouTube. Dude, I'm just talking about houses. What kind of society are we living where your employer will be mad at you or look down at you or even maybe dismiss you if you're watching my channel? I mean, we're just talking common sense point of views. We're not even going crazy. We're not even getting racial here. We're not even getting violent. You know what I'm saying? It's really, really bizarre how people have to... A lot of people... I received 3 letters this week, and I received 4 letters last week, handwritten like this. And people are telling me they just don't want their employer to know that they're watching my show. But one, I'm not even popular. So if someone says, Mike Martin's channel, okay, so what? Who cares? Who the hell is this Mike Martins anyway? No one even knows who this guy is. The guy can't even read. Look at this guy. Look at me. I'm walking down the street. Who's gonna take advice from a guy that looks like me? Not a lot of people will, right? I'm not even giving advice. I'm just talking. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, we got open lines at 1-250-800-1489. You don't have to crank call. Soundboards and stuff. It's fun. I think it's entertaining. But we want to keep the discussion to housing. We want to talk about housing in your area and what's happening. We'll do a rants and lifestyle during the week when I get this office done. So we could do, I know people want to talk about presidential stuff, the whole crap that's happening in Hollywood, stuff happening in all over the place. Or should I say pedowood. And it's basically what's happening. The housing market is so big and the crisis is so big that we could dedicate an entire show about it. And you won't get bored because it's entertaining. Believe it or not. The housing market is becoming, everyone's sitting back, enjoying, have your popcorn, drink your beer, because we're off to a really good show here. And let's kick this off because I want to start with this. Toronto real estate prices roll back. BC now home to the third most expensive market. I mean, that's the title you don't want to get. It's like saying, yeah, it's one of the worst. Yeah, so someone's commenting here saying people in the real estate business will get backlashed if they expose any funny business or corruption going on in the industry. I have an article coming up just about that. It's my next one, actually. Canadian real estate has divided into two distinct markets once again. Numbers for the Canadian Real Estate Association show that half of markets posted price gains in October and half showed price declines. Even with some showing monthly declines, only two major markets show negative price growth in the past year. So this is the major market index is flat. The price benchmark of a home across major markets is seeing price growth start to stall. You know what stalling means? It's your driving standard for the first time. You slip off the clutch and the car shuts off. That's what stalling is. That means it's shutting off. CRE reported that the composite benchmark price of $601,000 in October, virtually flat from the month before, represents a 9.71% increase compared to the same month last year. While prices are up on an annual basis, they're down 2.54% from the peak obtained in May 2017. So you see the dip right here. So people that study trends in the stock market, I do lots of stock investing. I've been stock investing for the last 10 years. You will start to see how these trends work. And you can see right here where the roller coaster ride's coming to the end. It's coming to the last dip. I don't know if that makes any sense. So lots of people commenting here. Okay, so there's the Canadian real estate benchmark price change 12-month composite right here. So you got it right here. So look at the change. You're seeing this huge dip coming in. And like I said, for people that could forecast this stuff, they could see right out of the hole. You could see there's a problem. BC is home to three most expensive cities. The most expensive cities are all in BC. Now that Ontario prices have rolled back, people living in Toronto now are walking away from pre-builts. Pre-built units. Hey, guess what? Here are my keys, or my future keys to the house that isn't built yet. Merry Christmas. You could keep my down payment. I'm walking away from this. Yeah, I got people on the ground telling me. I got people messaging me. You have no idea how many messages I get on a daily basis. And it's it's becoming a problem. So someone's saying this is pretty much global, at least in all the G20 nations. Not really. From doing this for the last 5 years, it's mainly the English-speaking countries. Even Jamaica. Jamaica is out of control. Jamaica is completely bought out. People in Jamaica, businesses and everything, are bought out. Any country that speaks English is experiencing this major problem right now. You have countries like Angola, Mozambique, Guinea-Bissau, Portuguese Africa. The infrastructure is really good in Portuguese Africa. So a lot of foreign investors have invested there with interests of oil, petroleum, but not in the housing market. So it's a little bit different how investments work. Africa, it's more mineral-based. English-speaking countries, it's more real estate-based because they want to take advantage of the education system, the healthcare system, whatever they could get their hands on, right? So it is global, but it's mainly in the English-speaking countries. Scotland's having this problem. Edinburgh's out of control. Edinburgh's going to be one of the most expensive cities right now in Europe, and it's climbing right now. Dublin has a major problem right now in Ireland because they have to pay their new employees that arrived to Dublin first and last month's rent and security deposit because they can't afford it. It's too expensive, right? Then you got London's out of control. Everyone's leaving the town. Mass migration of youth leaving London, and it's becoming a problem. Same thing with Sydney. There's a huge problem in Sydney where they have to build a tower, apartment building, condominium tower, whatever you want to call it, for police officers, fire workers, firemen, garbage men, nurses, doctors, because they can't afford to live in their own city and they don't want to commute for 3 days to get to work, or commute for, you know what I mean, by 2 hours to get to work and 2 hours to go home. Do you want your local police that's standing on the corner watching over policing the city to only have 1 hour or 2 hours of sleep because he has to commute into work for 2 hours and commute out 2 hours out? I even heard this story about an airline pilot that messaged me. An airline pilot messaged me, okay? He flies for Qantas. And he told me, he emailed me, said, Mike, I'm a pilot. I've been a pilot for 11 years. Unfortunately, I couldn't buy anything close to the main airport that I fly out of. And I have to commute 2 hours to get to the airport to work. And he tells me he is truthful in telling me that he is tired sometimes when he wants to fly, when he has to fly, and he doesn't feel like it because he's exhausted from the drive in to work. So the problem's a lot bigger than we could ever imagine. And what's the other problem, that other side of the coin that people are that I've been thinking about and talking to people a lot, is the people that have potential, quality, good skills to bring to the country can't come here because it's too expensive. And I'm talking about the people working, poor people, but they have good skills to bring to the country, a good dynamic, a good train of thoughts, but they can't come because it's too expensive. So we're losing out on those people that actually want to come and lay roots, get a job, put their kids through school, pay their taxes. We're losing those people too because they can't come. It's too expensive. So it's a really lose-lose situation. You're losing on all ends. You know, like Charlie Sheen says, win, win, win. No, we're losing everywhere. And it's now people are turning away. Like, I had an email from a girl from the York University. She can't afford to live in Toronto when she graduates. She wants to stay and work she's working in, she's like a chemical engineer, something. But the job that she found in Alberta won't pay her enough to live, so she has to leave and go back to her home country. You know? So let's continue here. So this is what's happening. So Vancouver is moved up, and BC has the 3 of the most expensive cities in Canada. So this is one that somebody was talking about here in the comment section. Real estate commissions could fall as new competition heats up. So this one is for real estate agents. Do you really nowadays, in all fairness, need a real estate agent? I have a car. I could go on the computer and see what's for sale. I could drive around and look at the houses from the outside. I could tell you right from the outside if the neighborhood's even worth looking inside the house. Like, I mean, it's nice to have someone chaperone you, but sometimes you want to have your own thing. You know what I'm saying? Leave that in the comments below. I want to know what you guys think. Do you really need a real estate agent to tell you that a house has running water and hot water and, you know, and if there's any flaws, they won't tell you anyway. So let's say the real estate agent, they're like, what's this on the wall? Oh, don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. That's nothing. So what's the point of a real estate agent if they're going to lie and hide any flaws in the house? And what's the point? Anyways, I want to know you guys comment below on that one. For years, real estate agents have enjoyed a strong market where high housing prices have translated into fat commissions. But the landscape is getting crowded. More and more agents are vying for your business, and the traditional industry may be in for a shakeup. A cooling housing market, legal battles, and powerful federal agency are all circling. Everyone wants a piece of their pie, you know what I'm saying? It could all lead to cheaper deals when dulling agents and service drops their prices to win your business. So, oh, what? I could do 0.5%. So, agents everywhere. The Canadian Real Estate Association includes more than 100,000 real estate broker agents and salespeople. Holy smokes. And you know what, guys? I tried to become, when I moved to like 11 years ago when I moved to Vancouver, I wanted to get into the whole real estate agent thing. I speak Spanish, Portuguese, English. I could talk to people in multiple languages and get out there and get myself out there and build myself up, work on commission. Commission's always good to work on because then you really push yourself to really stride, right? And they outright told me, your reading skills are really poor. We can't use you. And I'm like, woo! Anyways, so battle in the courts, breaking with tradition, competition watchdogs case. Oh, there's a lot going on. So real estate agents, what do you guys think? I want you guys to comment below. Yes, someone's saying home inspection. Yes, but sometimes you got the real estate agent that's usually in cahoots with the home inspector. Sometimes, you know what I'm saying? And then the home inspector and the appraiser sometimes works with the bank, so they're like, what kind of number are you looking for, type of thing. But that was back in the days when housing, they didn't go to auctions. Back in the days, you'd send out an inspector, he'd go out, you look, then you give an offer, and then they'd counter it, and blah, blah, blah. That was back in the days when the housing market was, interest rates were at 4.5%, when people were actually making real money. People were making interest off their bank accounts. That was when things were good, you know what I'm saying? So, I keep talking about the working poor, middle class. Can the government save the middle class wannabe homeowner in Toronto and Vancouver? This guy writes a lot of good articles here for the Globe and Mail. His name is Rob Carrick. He's really good. This is like the 10th article I'm reading from him in the last little while. With the new federal housing strategy coming immediately, let's catch up on what the recent ups and downs in Canada's most expensive real estate markets mean for affordability. Remember Paul Simon's song, Slip Sliding Away? That's your life if you're not a high earner and trying to afford a home. Toronto and Vancouver are markedly less affordable than they were 2 years ago. And Victoria and Hamilton are similar. Elsewhere, the news is quite a bit better. Using an old-fashioned affordability measure that says a home should cost no more than 3 times your household gross income. Remember back in the days when that was the case? Yeah. Housing markets in St. John's, Halifax, St. John, New Brunswick, Quebec City, Ottawa, Winnipeg, Regina, Saskatoon, Edmonton look manageable. Hey, what about Merritt? I'm in Merritt, okay? It's manageable here. Calgary's only a little on the expensive side, as is Montreal. Where was it here? The affordable markets across the country break into a few different groups. The first being cities where house prices are just plain cheap. St. John's is a great example. The average price in October was $168,000. No, see, this is the problem. That's not that it's cheap. That's what it's worth. That's the problem when I'm reading these articles. A lot of times, like, oh, look, you could buy a house cheap in St. John's, $168, man. Listen, SA. It's not because it's $160. It's because that's what it's worth. Not because it's cheap. It's what it's worth. A $2 million house in Vancouver, is it worth $2 million? That's what I'm trying to stress to you guys. It's not worth $2 million. That's just 2.1 times the average average income. Average prices in Halifax, Quebec City, Regina, and Saskatoon were below 300 large. With St. John's just a bit above the mark, and the house can be had in each for roughly 3 times your income. So, not cheaper housing, but properly priced housing does exist. You know what I'm saying? So someone's commenting here. My experiences with the real estate agents are not worth 5% of the home's value for the lack of service. Not to mention, they are not looking out for your interest, only themselves. Maybe there's some good ones. Of course, there's some good ones. But I'm saying in reality, you have someone tagging along, chaperoning, listening to your conversations, even if you talk to yourself, and then you ask a question that looks like something looks shifty. You're gonna get obviously the answer you want to hear, so you don't feel worried. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. Someone's commenting here. Immigration only makes sense when there is opportunity, i.e., jobs. We have a surplus of unemployment, and the last thing we need is more unemployed in the lineups. So remember, we've been following this whole New Zealand is banning foreign buyers for buying in New Zealand starting January 1st, 2018. So it's saying here, ban on foreign home buyers in New Zealand should not affect resident expats. Foreigners are to be banned from buying property in New Zealand in a bid in the newly elected government to cool soaring housing prices. So a lot of people were saying, "Oh no, it's not foreign investing. It's not foreign investing." Okay, then let's ban foreign investing. Then, if that's not the problem, then it's not gonna hinder anything. It's not gonna hinder nothing. Homeowner Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern has confirmed that the expats will not be banned as long as they have permanent residency status. Property prices have been soaring in recent years due to, I like how they say just soaring. It's so bad in New Zealand, you guys have no idea how bad it is in New Zealand. It's so bad that they have to stay in hotels. The government's paying hotels for people to live in hotels because that's how bad it is. Wealthy foreigners see New Zealand property as a safe haven investment, and it has left some locations, such as Auckland, with a severe shortage of homes for sale. So this is a big problem. Excluding Auckland, median prices are $440,000, an annual rise of 8.5%, with some areas seeing as much higher growth. For example, prices went up 14.4% in Otago, 11.5% in Mamawatu and Wasagi, and 9.9% in Waikato. So it's crazy. I don't know if anyone's paying attention, but New Zealand's out of control right now. Whew. So let's get to some messages here. Dale from Whitehorse says, "We need more people like you who can really fix these issues. Plus, housing is expensive here in the true north." So Whitehorse is in one of the northern territories, and housing is it's pretty pricey up there. And I don't know why, but it is. It just is. You know what I'm saying? And okay. Don't forget, guys, we have open lines 1-250-800-1489. Call me private. This whole Magic Jack thing, phone number always shows up on the screen. I don't know why. I think it's *67, *90, or *70 on your phone, and then you can call private. There's a lot of phone apps you could use that are free to call in over the internet, voice over IP phone apps free. You know, free. China to fend off bubble risk with tighter property rules. Beijing says it will stop illegal capital from moving into real estate. Investment is to be shared out more evenly to other sectors. Cooling measures on property prices appear to be taking effect. So that's what's happening in China. They've put a lot of capital controls on because China was having a massive runoff on their wealth. They had a runoff debt clock in China where it shows how many millions of dollars were leaving China by the minute. They had to take it down, but the wealth was leaving China beyond anyone's imagination, and the government had to put a stop to it because the country would have just gone broke. You know, they have their own housing bubble in China. They have their own issues in China. you know. Chinese authorities have said that they will head off the risk of property market crash by stiffening regulations and preventing high land prices. Regulators from land and housing ministries as well as the People's Bank of China have agreed plans to curb speculation in bricks and mortars, Reuters reporting, citing comments on a Chinese state television. The authorities said that they would stop funds being illegally funneled into property and that capital flow would be more forcibly balanced between real estate and other industries. So that's the problem. And I keep talking about how the free market's open for people to come in to invest because it's an open society. It's, you know, so, and what I'm trying to say here is instead of this article is exactly what I said a few days ago. They're not investing in stock markets, oil industries, production industries, factories, job growth, whatever. They're all putting their money in housing. Even in China, they're putting their money in their own housing there because they feel it's the safest, their safest way to protect or shelter their money in a house. You get it? Shelter house. You get it? So that's what's happening in China, and that's what I've been trying to tell you guys. When investors come to Canada, America, London, wherever, it goes right to housing. Back in the day, they would open nail salons, restaurants. They would open malls, strip malls, insurance companies, whatever, right? But that's not happening anymore. And then there's no more jobs being created. And then there's housing being bought. And then people locally can't live anymore. So that's exactly what's happening, right? CCTV also reported that there would be greater scrutiny of the land market to prevent the underlying cost from pushing up property prices. The Beijing-based authorities also reminded province leaders to enforce more restrictive lending and make sure building-related regulations were being closely followed. So a lot of banks and financial institutions are on the hook now. And China is one of the countries, you don't want to break laws in those countries, you know what I'm saying? If they tell you something, you do it. You know what I'm saying? The average home prices in China rose 0.3% month to month in October, a slight tick up from 0.2% gain in September. These figures are according to Reuters calculations from China's National Bureau of Statistics data released on Saturday. So I kind of wanted to put this article out there. So in response to the one I just read, China pullback could hurt Canadian housing. This is an older article from November the 2nd. Prices of residential homes in Vancouver and Toronto have continued their uphill climb, causing organizations like Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation to issue warnings about the vulnerability of those markets. Even in a global context, Vancouver ranks at perhaps the overvalued housing market in the world. Senior Vice President says, and portfolio manager with Cohen and Steers in New York, among other real estate funds, he manages Recession's global real estate. So, is there going to be? Yes, there's going to be a major problem. And I think the Canadian proper, middle class, working poor, whatever you want to call it, is really going to have to clean up this mess. I don't know. This one here, why, I don't know if you guys remember this article I read for you guys where I was freaking out. Why solving the UK housing crisis requires more than new homes. The problem isn't lack of supply. It's that the current supply is too expensive. Holy smokes, you just figured that out. Holy smokes, they just figured this out. This is what I've been talking about for the last, 5 years. What did you think? We weren't going to find out? Anyways, I want a couple of shout-outs here. I got FU watching me. Please mention me, Mike Martin. He's my bouncer here. That comes on once in a while, takes care of any hoodlums in the chat area. Good evening, Mike. Got home late, but glad to be here. And yeah, Wise Man's here. Harry's here. Tyler's here. Tyler's saying the supply issue is code word for propping up the last pillar that keeps our sad economy going. And it's like I said, our economy is based off mortgages, student loans. Student loans, I think, surpassed unsecured loans. I think it did in America too. Student loans, but get that education! Get that 6 years! Yeah, Diane Moore is here. Everyone's there. Everyone's here in the comments tonight. So I'm going to say this again because, because it feels like I'm right for the first time in my life. The problem isn't lack of supply. It's that current supply is too expensive. Watch this video. I put it up the other day. I was freaking out reading this. I couldn't even read it. I was so mad. It's like, really? I mean, did they just figure this out? Like, I mean, yeah. Let's move on. And then they got another rocket scientist out of Australia. Rocket science. Look at this. Analysis show oversupply in housing in Australia. Holy smokes! Wow. How did they figure that out? Rocket science. I've been talking about this for 5 years now. 5. You know your hand? It's got 5 fingers. Analysis shows oversupply of housing in Australia. I've been talking about that. And you know what I keep factoring into? The empty units. The 30, 40, 50,000 empty units in Brisbane. The 40,000 empty units in Sydney. The 30,000 empty units in Perth. The 25,000 empty units in all these other cities. I've been talking about this over and over and over again. And it's like, whoa, look what we found out. Really? So now what? We've been told for years. Let me close this. I got this thing open here on the side. We've been told for years that rising housing prices are linked to the undersupply of homes in Australia, but new report calls for a rethink. Are you friggin' serial? Didn't they see this from... Okay, let me give you an example. They say that Vancouver is undersupply. They need to build more in Vancouver. When you go to the city on a weekday during work hours, let's say 3 p.m., you get off on the SkyTrain, you go downtown, let's say Burrard. You don't see as many people as you did 5-10 years ago. It's kind of empty. There's not a lot of people. You go out and about to different parts, different areas during the day, you don't see a lot of people out. You see a lot of traffic of people coming into the city, but you don't see a lot of people out and about. Not like you used to. So I think they really need to take this back to the drawing board because construction companies, you got a lot of people involved in here, a lot of politics involved in here, and who's going to fix this? Because they're going to have an oversupply. What's going to happen? Prices are going to drop like a rock. So, yeah, someone's commenting here. I don't know about Vancouver, but in Toronto, the skyline has changed drastically over the last 15 years. I went back to Toronto like three years ago, and the skyline has changed. There is still people out and about. There's lots of people in the city when you walk up. Not like in Vancouver, where it's kind of sporadic and there's lots of empty streets. Toronto, there's still people all over the place, which is considered, it's a big city, right? But yeah, who said universities are failing us? And then someone else, yeah, Margaret, moved to Oscarts with the John Monroe's crew, $25,000 and a spot in a bunker. It's a real good deal, wink, wink. So anyways, people are going, commenting here in the comment section. So, researchers from the Australian National University analyzed 15 years of census data and building approvals and found Australia had an oversupply of 164,000 dwellings. 164,000 dwellings oversupply, and no one could afford to buy them still. And still people can't afford to buy them. In particular, inner cities of Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane had the most extra housing, although other areas were experiencing shortages. Nah, count the empty homes. They're considered as also vacant. The surplus is not particularly substantial, but certainly suggests that the housing supply in itself is probably not the primary driver. Oh, someone's calling me private. Let's see who it is. Hello, you're on the show live. Hi.
Hello, is this Michael?
Yeah.
Hi, how you doing? This is Tito.
Hey, Tito. What? Oh, Tito, how you doing, man?
By the grace of God, doing well. Barely got off of work.
Yes. Are you the guy that left Los Angeles?
Yep, I left Los Angeles in 2006. I've been here in Harris County, Texas since 2006, so I've been here 11 years now.
So, what can you tell us? Because I've been talking about the mass exodus of California on last week's show.
Uh-huh.
What do you know about it? Do you have people really been leaving as they've been saying they have?
From what I've read online, yes. You have a lot of people moving to Phoenix, Arizona.
Okay.
And for whatever reason, a lot of people from California are either moving to Austin, Texas, Houston, Dallas. I don't know about San Antonio because San Antonio has more of a small town feel to it. But if you drive around Houston, you'll always see California tags, like at least 2 or 3 cars on an average day. Oh,
So there's a mass exodus happening in California, and why did you leave? Why was the reason for leaving California? Was it getting expensive, or was it getting out of control? Was it violence? What was it?
Well, when we left, the mortgage bubble hadn't burst yet.
Okay.
It was about to.
Oh, you were right at the time when things were going crazy.
Yeah, like you had like the house that my father had was valued at $550,000, and we're talking about a single home, 1-story, bedrooms, 2 bathrooms.
So in a real market, it'd be worth what, 210, right?
Right now, I looked it up. Now it's worth $590,000.
Holy smokes! Yeah, but
I would. Well, I went last year because I went to go visit my godfather, and I wanted to go visit my home state.
Mm-hmm.
And what I noticed, just my personal opinion, is that it looks dirty. You know.
Yeah.
It's overcrowded. I don't know how people live there. I went to go visit the house that I lived in.
Mm-hmm.
There's like 3 families living there now.
Wow. And yeah, because a lot of people are forced to having to live with each other because the cost of living is too high.
Exactly.
And the standard of living is too low.
Like, you know how the middle class is disappearing? Well, California is like prime example. You have like ultra rich people. The middle class is completely disappearing, and then you have a lot of poor people. Unless you have people that bought their houses like years ago, their mortgage, like my godfather when he bought his house, almost has his house paid off, and he never refinanced it. But
of course.
What else can I tell you? I don't agree with their gun laws.
Okay.
Laws seem to be going backwards. It seems they don't respect the Second Amendment. I don't know how you feel about guns, but I'm very pro-gun.
Guns are, if they're used right, there's nothing wrong with guns. Guns are not. It's the people are the problem, not the guns, right? So people need to understand that, right? It's like anything else. I mean,
but they try to politicize it and make it seem like it's a gun problem when really it's just. Look, man, criminals and crazy people, if they want to kill somebody, they're going to do it regardless, no matter what laws you pass. So when you pass these very tyrannical laws, the only people that I see that are affected is the law-abiding citizens.
Or the working poor or the middle class.
Like, yes, but if you, like, even when I'm 32 years old. Even when I was growing up in California, it was still kind of nice, like, you could still ride your bicycle, play basketball outside. Now, the local jails and the prisons, the state prisons, they're so overcrowded that, a lot of the people that are in the state prison, a lot of them are getting early release.
Oh, I heard about that. I heard about that. Yes, they're getting, some people are getting exonerated or early release, sometimes 8 to 10 years shaved off their sentence.
And then if you commit like a misdemeanor crime, the police, they really don't want to take you to jail because it's overcrowded. They rather take someone who has committed a more serious crime.
Mm-hmm.
Then they've also figured out that they can't really get money out of criminals because they really don't have any assets.
Right.
Pass these stupid laws so they could criminalize the law-abiding citizen, and the law-abiding citizen does have assets, and they could extort them, from what I've read.
So let me ask you: do you have your own place now?
I still stay with my folks, but the house is paid for.
Good. So you don't have and I guess you live close to home and everything, right? You work close to home. Sorry.
Yes.
Good. That's good. Yeah, because here where I live in Canada, it got really bad in the city of Vancouver where I was living, and your dad's home. Your dad's home in Vancouver would be $1.7 million.
Wow, that's ridiculous. My understanding now that in Canada, if like you read a passage in the Bible where it's out against homosexuality, that is not considered hate.
Mm-hmm. Well, it depends. It depends people's point of views, but Canada, I think everything's changing so fast, and I'm having a really hard time catching up to what's going on. You know what I'm saying? Once you get used to one thing, something else comes up, and then something else comes up, and then something else, and you don't know what the hell's going on. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's why you can't really trust the mainstream news. It's just, it's like they play people like a ping pong ball, and they only tell you what they want you to know. They don't really tell you the truth about anything.
Well, why would they tell you the truth? And that means they're gonna actually be a viable source. You know what I'm saying? Anyways,
what I've noticed here in America, my brother, is that the people have been really dumbed down. Like,
yeah.
You know how the Romans used to say, just give them their bread and their circus and they'll be fine?
That's right.
But here in America, as long as you give people football, beer, and sex, people are happy.
Yeah, no, I understand. I used to live down in Miami. I know how it was, and it was pretty sad to see.
The people that pull the strings and really call the shots, they get away with everything, while the masses are just like blind, and then most people are just so worried with paying their mortgage and paying their bills.
Mm-hmm.
They don't really have time to think about these kind of things.
Exactly. They're so occupied with just living that they forget what's happening around them.
And then another sad thing is that, like, when you do question things, right away you're labeled a conspiracy theorist, and that phrase became really popular after JFK's assassination because that's how they labeled all the people that were questioning the official story, and that has stuck forever, like, oh, you're crazy, or you're a nut job.
Yeah.
I don't think a person is crazy because they're just, if you're a critical thinker and you're questioning everything, that does not make you crazy. Not everything is a conspiracy, but a lot of things, don't make no sense, like that shooter in Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't get their story straight.
Yeah.
Photographs they had, all those photos look staged. When the people are getting shot, it all looks like stage actors.
Yeah, I heard there's lots of things floating around, and people shouldn't be shut out, especially when they have ideas or they feel like something's going on. You know what I'm saying? People shouldn't be shut out of thinking outside the box, because that's how we get ahead in life. Because if we don't think outside the box, we'll never get ahead. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, I gotta let you go. I'm gonna finish off a couple of articles here. But I appreciate you calling into the show, and please call back again next time, okay? We're going to do a Rants and Lifestyle where we'll be talking about JFK and Donald Trump and all that stuff, just about that stuff, okay?
All right. God bless you. All right.
God bless. Thanks, brother. Bye.
Bye.
Anyways, that was Tito calling in from Southeast Texas there, and also left California. Yeah, we'll do a Rants and Lifestyle. We'll have people calling in, because I got a lot of people from the U.S. watching this, so they could call in and give me JFK what they feel, Trump what they feel, and Canada. How do we feel in Canada, people? How do we feel in Canada? What's going on in the Canadian Parliament? You know what I'm saying? What's happening in Canadian Parliament? I'd like to know. Anyways, okay, let's keep going here. So this is back with Australia saying, oh yeah, you know what? It's an oversupply problem we have. How do we fix this? It's because nothing is... Nothing's affordable, and that's the problem. You have an oversupply because no one could buy. And someone's commenting here, new info about JFK. Yeah, we'll keep you posted on JFK the second we get anything here on the show. Steve is commenting, hello, watching in real time from Toronto. Lots appears to be changing in the greater Toronto area. Yeah, Toronto. What's happening is you're getting all these people moving to the main cities and looking for opportunity. And I think it's nice and all, getting out there. You know, I don't know if you remember that song, When You're Alone and Life is Making You Boring, You Could Always Go Downtown. And people have been attracted to the big cities, but what's happening is people can no longer afford to live in the big city. And this is what's happening, and cities are changing, landscapes are changing. Just like Tito said when he called in, he went back to LA, back to his old home where he used to live in, and he said it's dirty, it's run down, and things look creepy. And yeah, of course, that's what happens when the working middle class leaves, and you get 4 families living in a house after. Things start to fall apart. Another article from The Domain. Australia's property sector has 9 months to prepare itself. Australian homeowners have 9 months to prepare themselves for higher interest rates. If you're watching this from Australia, comment in the comment sections. Tighter lending restrictions, according to ANZ economist, who says Canada's approach to similar property market could be seen as a roadmap. Yeah, that's right, Steve. Everything is too expensive to get in, and they will bail out the money you're holding on in the bank, and the bubble goes pop. Well, Finance and Economist says, just sitting here waiting for the 75% price drop in prices. That's very true. And I'll tell you why that's not a dream, a pipe dream. A house, remember, in, was it Newfoundland, is $176,000 because that's what it's worth. A $2 million house in Vancouver, same style of house, same one in Newfoundland, same style home, for $2 million, it isn't worth $2 million. It's valued at that, but it's not worth it. You know, I understand that you speak English, but do you understand English? That's a big difference, right? Vancouver, Toronto are often linked to Sydney and Melbourne. You know why? This guy right here. I keep bringing those same cities up over and over again. Canada recently released additional macro-prudential measures for the property sector. These are likely to have a material impact on mortgage originations, housing affordability, and proper price growth. So look at this, Australia and Canada. Doesn't that look similar to you guys? Look at 08. Boop, 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 boop. And then it goes back up, then it dips, and it goes back up. But they're both on the same wavelength here, and they're both going down right now as we speak. Let's keep going. New research shows Australia has a housing oversupply, but it's not dragging down prices. Because they're all empty. They're owned, and they're not, and they're, if they were empty and no one owned them, we would be in trouble. But they're owned by investors. The ANU report suggests there may be up to 164,000 surplus dwellings currently unoccupied around the country. Large parts of Australia have more houses and units than people need. So look at this. That's Queensland. Look at that. 59,800. Victoria, New South Wales, 16,200. And look at this. Regions with housing surpluses and shortages. So this is where you got shortages. Inner Sydney, Inner Brisbane, Townsville, Melbourne City, all these other cities here. And then this is the places where you have oversupply. Adelaide, Wyong, Fairfield, Shallow Haven. So a study of population, dwelling, and household types. In terms of methodology, the researchers took 2001 as a baseline and used census data from the year until 2016. They tracked changes in the number of people per household in census figures, adjusting to account the various types of households. They also factored in population growth and more accurately gauged supply of underlying demand. I think they're using a bunch of cool words to try and mask the problem. So this is the article I did, Housing Crisis, the Party's Over. It has a whole ton of comments on here. This is really, really good. Harry is always commenting on here. And he talks about here how the housing debt absolutely bloomed after the wake of the oil bust and spawned a new evil result called jingle mail. Please see details. And then really good comments on this video, Housing Crisis, the Party's Over. Please watch it. It's actually really good. I have been talking to people who have part-time jobs. They used to have 2 jobs, but now have 1 job. This is gonna hurt retail. I talked to one today, and they happened to have him or her. She said, "I am sticking with just 1 part-time job." They're getting used to pay less pay. So I love how he says he can't read, but he owns a business and his house outright. School smarts are severely overrated. Oh, the 7 comments on that. Okay, there's lots of comments on here. There was a really good one here where someone commented, someone actually did some research talking about the housing prices on average in America and Canada and discussing what the annual incomes are in both countries and how there's a huge discrepancy, how in Canada we're paying way more money in consideration with the United States, a lot more money. 184 people recorded sleeping rough in Dublin on 7th of November. So this was sent to me from my friends over at RTE News from Ireland. So they wanted me to just bring this up to let people know that it's becoming a problem. And in places like Ireland and in Scotland and Wales, it's kind of unheard of to have a lot of people out and about and have nowhere to be, because they do have a lot of facilities in those countries to help house and keep people safe. So I just put that out there for a friend of mine. Street Roots News, someone sent me this too, asked me to read it. To fix Portland's housing crisis, tax big businesses and the wealthy. Portland, so the whole west coast of the United States is experiencing this massive buyout. All the way from Vancouver, Canada, down to Seattle, down to Portland. Man, even Tacoma's having this problem. Portland, all the way down to Eugene, Salem, all the way down to San Francisco, right to the bottom of, right to the San Diego, Tijuana border. People are being bought out. The middle class is moving east, just like when Tito called in, said a lot of people are moving to Phoenix, Arizona, Texas, other cities and stuff. And that's what happened here. So this is a big problem. What happened originally, this is originally what happened. California got too expensive, and then a lot of people moved north to Portland and north to Seattle, and then Amazon opened up there, or Google or whatever it was. And then that started to get things out of control there, and then the Vancouver foreign buyers tax came into effect, and then a lot of the real estate agents in Vancouver drove down to Seattle to bring their customers and work with the Washington counterparts there in Seattle, bringing over more investors and printing out brochures this thick of different cities to buy in the U.S. and then taking it from there, right? So now it's been a big problem for the people living on the Western Seaboard, Pacific Ocean right now. Amazon headquarters could make Chicago's housing crisis worse. This was sent to me from a longtime follower of my channel. His name is Clifton. sent me this, told me that the city is somewhat opposing this because they're taking up apparently some land, and that's being relocating people and stuff, and that's not what a lot of people are looking for right now. A lot of people in these areas are looking for a good stability. We just got over the 2008 hump. Jobs are somewhat coming back. Economy is somewhat coming back. But, it is creating jobs too. But that's for my friend Clifton. It says here, one Seattle resident writes a cautionary tale in Politico. Having witnessed that city's transformation, remember I told you earlier about that, moving there in Seattle, as the online realtor behemoth's corporate headquarters grew there, the writer suspects Amazon suitors may be laboring under some unrealistic expectations by overstating the benefits of housing the new headquarters and underestimating the impact of tens of thousands of young, well-paid knowledge workers can have a local infrastructure, housing price, and even politics. So that's from my friend Clifton. Thanks for sending me that in. Hundreds of Australian buildings companies are at risk of failure as Chinese investors retreat. All right. So someone just commented here. It looked like it was a good comment. Why not just freeze immigration for 20 years? There is no doctor shortage in Canada, no engineer shortage, no trade shortage. The problem is you could freeze immigration, but the problem is we're not having as much kids anymore because we can't afford to. Once you're bought out of a market, once you're bought out housing-wise, rental-wise, once you're completely bought out, it holds you back from getting married. It holds you back from having kids. It holds you back from traveling more often. It holds you back from getting a good job because you can't afford to live in a certain area because you're too far from the job. It holds you back from your whole life. And people don't understand the domino effect of how much damage it creates in your life when you're bought out of a market. And then, even if you're renting, you're still trying to get your foothold. You still kind of want your own thing. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, it becomes a major problem. And that's why we're not having kids anymore. I have 2 kids. I had kids late. I'm 39. I'm going to be 40 next year. And my okay, reconnection successful. It looks like I'm back online, guys. Sorry about that. I went offline for a few seconds there. And what was I saying? Oh, somebody's calling in. Hello? You're live.
Martin, how you doing, buddy?
Good. How you doing? It's the Walking Journey, people. He's managed to call in. Thank God he's here. How's your evening going?
Excuse me?
You managed to call in. That's good. How's your evening going?
Oh, man, I've been really busy today. There's a virus going around. I don't know if it's going up in Canada. All the children are sick right now.
What virus?
Some flu virus.
Oh, flu virus.
Causing massive vomiting and, well, you get the idea.
Wow. Well, did you get this at work? Do you have this?
They said it's in the air.
It's in the air.
Yeah, all the kids are having it right now.
Okay, I want to ask you a question since you're on the phone with me. I want to ask you something, okay? Somebody's asking here in the comment section what would happen if in the U.S. they froze immigration for 20 years? What would happen there?
Oh, man, it will lower the price of the rent. Jobs would open up everywhere. Wages would increase. Crime would drop. Property taxes would drop, too, because that's where all the welfare money's coming from. For all the illegals, they're all on food stamps. They get treated better than the citizens, man. They get free rent, housing, everything. And they wouldn't make their butts work because a
A lot of them only work to send the money to like Mexico to build these nice, beautiful houses, and they live off the taxpayer money.
So you think in the situation you're in, or where you're living, that if you freezed immigration, the crime would go down, the cost of living would go down, property taxes would go down, crime would go down, all that stuff would happen?
Healthcare would go down. Quality of life would go up.
Mm-hmm.
Man, immigration is not free. Somebody has to pay for it.
Yeah, I understand that. I never thought of that point of view where immigration is not free. I never thought of it like that way. I never thought outside that way. You know what I'm saying? So
the only reason they want them here is because the whole idea is for someday for them to vote against your interest.
Yeah.
The whole idea is to bring about a one-party rule.
Yeah, I hear you. That was one of the main reasons why, a driving force for that too, right? And but how can they vote if they're not citizens?
Well, I used to live in California, and I used to work in the vote on the election.
Mm-hmm.
And trust me, they're letting them vote. They register them, and I don't know exactly how they do it up in the elections board, but they let them vote.
Interesting.
Trust me, I know. And I'm going to tell you something. Most of these illegal aliens from Mexico and Central America, 99% all Democrats. They vote liberal. They love socialism.
Mm-hmm.
They love free stuff from the government.
But you got to remember, a lot of these people are coming from politically oppressed countries where they have no right to do anything, right? So you have to see that other side of the coin, where they're living like, you know what I'm saying, in a position where they can't even do certain things, right? So that's another one, you know what I'm saying?
A lot of them have been taught to think that way from their government, so that's why they welcome them here. Believe me, man, if, let's say, everybody from south of the border was conservative, they love guns, and love God and everything, they wouldn't let them in, trust me. Interesting.
Okay, dude, let me call you back after the show. I'm going to finish this show off, okay?
Okay, bye. Have a good night.
Good night, brother. That was Anthony from The Walking Journey. Don't forget to watch his channel. He's down in Texas. He was covering the hurricane down there. Really good guy. Calls into the show all the time. I'm going to have a rants and lifestyle. Hopefully Monday I can get this damn room ready and set up so I could do a rants and lifestyle to discuss with you guys what's happening in outside the box of the housing crisis. He too left California because it was getting expensive and out of control, and bought out of the market, and he moved to Texas, you know, just like Tito did back 8 years ago, right? So more than 30 construction companies in Queensland have collapsed this year. That's a big deal if you're living in Australia. A new report in the risk of further failures puts another 444 building businesses at high to serve risk of failure next to 12 months. The apartment glut and the loss of Chinese investors are believed to be factors. So another blame game happening here, and a lot of people, investors, are pulling out of the Australian market because it is built on a house of cards. So let's move on here. Got the southern accent happening here. Sydney housing stock builds as auction clearances slow. Again, no one's showing up to auctions like back a year ago where housing was just going out of control. And someone's commenting here, already happening. That's from Diane Moore. And yeah, it's time to make other nations worth living in too. Yeah, it's true. There's a lot of, the thing is, the only problem is once you get a nation that's good and self-reliant and independent and working hard and has a working class and everything, usually what happens is you have another country that comes in and says, hey, this country here needs some freedom. And then you have to start all over again, you know. Okay, someone's commenting here. How come all the people of the world want to come to Canada instead of staying in their own nations? See, the problem, see, when we came to Canada in the 80s, early 80s, so we're talking about like 82, 81, it was different because Portugal, we're from Portugal originally. That's when Canada used to accept Portuguese immigration. They don't anymore. But when they used to, we had a huge problem with the Salazarian dictatorship that ended a few years before we came, right? But my dad was stationed in the army in Portuguese Africa for 2 tours. He went to 2 tours. So when they went back to Lisbon, they said, okay, we have to go. Canada's taking in people. So my dad had an older brother that was already living in Oakville, Ontario. And he says, let's go with my brother in Oakville, Ontario and live there. You know what I'm saying? And build a life, you know. You know, we came because of the fear of destabilization, because Portugal was one of those countries that did not want to join the World Bank. We had our colonies that did not want to join the World Bank. The Portuguese spent a lot of money in infrastructure in Africa. And we were just outcasted. So it was really hard for us to find a place. So we came to Canada. But when we came to Canada, it was different because Canada was like, you know, taking in people from Portugal. And a lot of us worked in the construction sector, landscaping sector. A lot of us worked really hard, you know what I'm saying? And that was that. That's why we're in Canada, right? And Canada's a great country. I love the country for everything it's done for me, and I understand. You know, Canada is going through a huge transitional problem right now with a lot of transitioning from every angle, whether it's from culture, whether it's whatever you want to call it, you know. It's changing so much, and I don't know if it's because of the influx of immigration that's bringing different cultures in. I don't know why, and it's Canada losing its way of life, because when I was young in the early 80s, it was very easy to find work at the time. It was very easy to pay off your house in 5 years. It was very easy to own 2 cars and a cottage and put your kid through school and have no debt, you know. So anyways, and lots of comments going, holy smokes. Okay, Sydney housing stock builds, auction clearances. So we're starting to see fracturing happening all across the world when it comes to housing, especially the English Commonwealth, whatever you want to call them. I call them English-speaking countries because that's how we say it in Portuguese. We have 8 countries that speak Portuguese, and there's whatever amount of countries that speak English. English-speaking countries are struggling with this housing issue. The youth is being bought out. People are forced to live with others. So what happens is the mentalities start to change. You start having to live with somebody else, and even though you don't want to, but you have to because you financially need to. Things start changing. You know, people aren't getting married as much as they used to. People are, so people are commenting here. Make them live here 5 years before getting any benefits. Somebody is commenting saying, make them live. So immigrants should live in the country 5 years before getting any benefits. I had a joke I was saying the other day. Any new immigrants that come to Canada need to go to Quebec and live in Quebec for 5 years before you could go anywhere else in Canada. So at least you learned French. You know what I'm saying? But no, it's I've never been on benefits myself. Neither have my family. We've always worked or did our thing, my business, and did our things, right? You know, paid off our debts. We don't believe in debt, right? But it's a dying breed. The breed like mine, a person my age that owns a house free and clear, a business free and clear, that is self-sufficient, it's very hard to find nowadays. I played the right cards at the right time, married the right person. Whoever you marry, is going to be the other half of your life. And if you can't get along with that person, or you can't, you're going to have a heck of a life living in misery. And that's a huge factor, finding the right person. So we're going to have a Rants and Lifestyle, maybe Monday show. We'll have Rants and Lifestyle, and we'll be talking about, we could talk about immigration. We'll have a lot of people from the States calling in. We could talk about if you're an immigrant to the country you live in, where you know, it's sorry, I'm just looking over at the comments section. Why did they freeze Portuguese immigration? Oh, they freezed Portuguese immigration in 2001, 2005, 2006. And then they had a mass deportation of Portuguese from Ontario. I'll show you guys here. Portuguese deportation in Canada. Yeah, it was around 2011. Government deported several Portuguese families. Living in Canada for 7 years. First wave of Portuguese deported Portuguese families. Deported Portuguese family. Entire family deported. Yeah, there's a lot of articles about this. Entire family deported. Toronto, 3 generations of the Sebastian family will not be having a Merry Christmas this year. One-way flight to Portugal has been booked for 10 members of the family. They even discussed this as a mass purging of Portuguese in Ontario. And so that's what happened. So when people are talking about deportation in the States and deporting people, illegals, they deported tens of thousands of Portuguese that were living in the country for 5, 10, 15 years, that owned their houses and everything. You know what I'm saying? So that's deporting Portuguese construction workers. They even went to high school. They went to the high school I went to, and they called out all the Portuguese speaking kids to wait in the gymnasium. And then they waited for their parents to come and bring in documentation to show that the kids were legal. And if they weren't, they get a one-way ticket back to Portugal, right? So that's so when people are like, you know, this and we're good for me. No, there's some cultures that here in Canada, they're very disliked. And it's another show for another time. I'll talk about that with you guys. You know, everyone always think discrimination is always white and black. No, there's a lot more. Believe me, there's a lot more. And that's who made me who I am today. And that's why I am very self-sufficient, because I was told at a young age that I would go nowhere in life. You know what I'm saying? So anyways, guys, I want you guys to join me if you can. So a lot of people are commenting here. Woo! And someone's commenting saying, we love our Portuguese neighborhoods out here. Mike, yeah, go to a restaurant, get some nice steak with a fried egg on top, get some Portuguese rotisserie chicken, get some of those cupcakes made of egg, those queijadas, they're so good. The rotisserie chicken is so good. The Nando's chicken, well, better than Nando's. Go to a private, small family restaurant. You'll love it. And yeah, we'll do some World Cup discussion. People are commenting like crazy. Yeah. Beef steak, or beef talk, yeah. Anyways, guys, I really appreciate you guys joining me and for this housing crisis. I'm going to try really hard. I'm going to try really hard to do a Monday Rants and Lifestyle for you guys. I want people to call in. We could talk about immigration. We could talk about JFK. We could talk about Donald Trump drinking water, and the mainstream media talking about how he drinks water like a child. That's not news. We could talk about inflation. We could talk about cryptocurrency. Everyone wants to talk about cryptocurrency. I'll do a Rants and Lifestyle. We could get into, but I want people to call in. I don't want to keep talking. I want people to call in for those shows. So when it's Rants and Lifestyle, yes. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for joining me. Big hug out there. It's an hour and 15 minutes I've been on. I want to go and do other stuff. I love the time together. Big hug, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and have yourself a good night. Godspeed.